Velkan had been running the Galactic Youth Academy for 40 standard cycles, and in all that time he had never not once lost a student file. His 4 eye stalks swiveled proudly toward his immaculate filing system, a monument to bureaucratic perfection. Then his datapad chirped. Transfer notification. Returning student. Kira Blake, human. Expected arrival 1400 hours. His eye stalks drooped. Blake. 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 Why did that name trigger his anxiety glands? He pulled up her file, and oh no, emergency withdrawal, 3 cycles ago. Reason for departure, and he was reading this correctly. Yes, homeworld military conscription. Military conscription, Velkan muttered, his translator clicking with disbelief. The child was 16. 16. He checked the file again. Definitely 16. What kind of barbaric, backwards, absolute madness. He was hyperventilating now. What kind of species sent their children to war? His species had achieved interstellar travel 2,000 years ago, and they still didn't allow anyone under 30 to operate heavy machinery, let alone weapons of mass destruction. He pulled up Earth's recent history. Planetary conflict, 3-year duration, 40 million casualties. 40 million. And they had sent students, actual students, his students. Velkan reached for his anxiety medication, the purple pills that tasted like regret and smelled like poor life choices. He had a feeling he would need the entire bottle today. Humans. Why did it always have to be humans? They seemed so pleasant when they weren't, apparently fighting apocalyptic wars during what should have been their senior year of secondary education. The transport shuttle landed at exactly 1400 hours, because of course it did. Punctuality, Velkan had learned, was a human virtue that bordered on threatening. He smoothed his administrative robes, arranged all 4 eye stalks in what he hoped was a welcoming configuration, and prepared his most sympathetic face, the one he used when students failed zero-gravity calculus. The airlock hissed open. A figure stepped out. Velkan's eye stalks nearly tied themselves in knots. That could not be Kira Blake. The girl in his files had been small, enthusiastic about xenobiology, and according to her last report card, delightfully terrible at quantum physics. This was, well, Kira Blake was tall now, or maybe she had always been tall and he had forgotten. She wore a simple gray shirt and black pants that somehow looked more threatening than actual armor. Her hair was shorter. Her eyes were, oh dear, her eyes were the problem. They did not move like a teenager's eyes. They swept the landing bay like a security scanner, cataloging exits, potential threats, and probably calculating the structural weak points of the building itself. Administrator Velkan, she said. Her voice was flat, professional, the voice of someone who had spent 3 years not being a student. Miss Blake. Velkan's voice cracked, which was humiliating considering he had 3 separate vocal cords. Welcome back. How wonderful to have you. Returning to complete your education. He gestured enthusiastically, perhaps too enthusiastically. I trust your leave of absence was it, how does one say, educational? Kira stared at him. Just stared. For 5 full seconds that felt like 5 hours. Sure, she said finally. Real educational. Learned a lot about ballistic trajectories and triage procedures. Great extracurricular activity. Oh, wonderful. Extracurricular, yes. Velkan was babbling now. He knew he was babbling. He could not stop babbling. Well, you will find campus much as you left it. The library has expanded. We have a new cafeteria featuring cuisines from 73 species and, well, he checked his datapad desperately. Your roommate is quite excited to meet you. Pip'r of Thessia, lovely girl. Very, energetic. Great, Kira said, shouldering her duffel bag. The bag looked heavy, very heavy, suspiciously heavy for someone returning to school. As if reading his thoughts, or possibly his terrified eye stalk configuration, the bag slipped. The zipper, cheap human engineering, gave way. Contents spilled across the pristine landing bay floor. Velkan stared. Not books, not clothes, not normal student supplies. Combat boots, a tactical vest, scarred and scorched. What looked distinctly like a disassembled rifle, because apparently humans just traveled with those. A knife that was less knife and more small sword. And sitting on top of the pile like some kind of ironic commentary, A single stuffed animal, a small earth creature called a bear, wearing what appeared to be miniature military insignia. I can explain, Kira said, not sounding like she planned to explain anything at all. I am sure you can. Velkan's voice hit a pitch that technically qualified as a shriek. I am absolutely certain this is all perfectly normal. He was not certain. He was the opposite of certain. He was negatively certain. Pip'r chose that exact moment to burst through the arrivals gate, because of course she did. The Thessian girl was a blur of pink skin, flowing robes, and genuine excitement that bordered on weaponized enthusiasm. Oh my stars, you must be Kira. Pip'r grabbed Kira's hands without any apparent concern for personal safety or social boundaries. I have heard so much about you. Well, not much, actually almost nothing. Your file was very sparse, which is mysterious, and I love mysteries. We are going to be the best friends. I have already organized your side of the room. I hope you like the color purple. I assumed everyone likes purple. Oh wow, you're tall. And is that a knife? That is definitely a knife. Why do you have a knife? Actually, don't answer that. I love that you have a knife. It's very bold, very statement piece, very you. Kira looked at Pip'r the way someone might look at a particularly enthusiastic natural disaster. Hi, Kira said. She speaks. One word answers. I can work with this. Come on, Rumi, let me show you our dorm. Pip'r was already gathering Kira's scattered combat gear, with zero recognition of what any of it actually was. Oh, this vest is so worn, very vintage aesthetic. And this stuffed bear, adorable. Does he have a name? Sergeant Patches, Kira said quietly. Perfect. I love him already. Velkan watched them go. Pip'r chattering at the speed of light, Kira following with the resigned posture of someone who had faced worse than bubbly roommates. Much worse. He took another anxiety pill, then another. It was going to be a very long semester. Chemistry lab was usually peaceful. Professor Cormax prided himself on running a safe, controlled environment where students learned to appreciate the elegant beauty of molecular bonds without, ideally, causing any explosions. Small explosions were tolerated on Wednesdays. Today was Tuesday. Class, today we examine the exothermic properties of combining helium-7 with standard atmospheric compounds, Cormax announced, his mandibles clicking with barely contained excitement. He was a Krickstar, which meant he had 6 arms and absolutely loved dramatic demonstrations. Observe the reaction. He combined the compounds. There was a flash, a small boom, harmless, really barely enough to rattle the beakers. Kira hit the floor. Not just ducked. Hit the floor like someone had activated a trapdoor beneath her feet, rolled behind the lab table, and came up in a crouch with a beaker in one hand positioned like a throwing weapon, and her other hand reaching for something at her hip that thankfully was not there, because this was chemistry class, and not presumably a war zone. 23 students, representing 14 different species, all froze. Professor Cormax's mandibles stopped mid-click. Miss Blake, he said carefully. Very carefully, the way one might address a malfunctioning explosive device. The demonstration is over. It was controlled. You are safe. Kira blinked, looked around, saw 23 pairs of various eyes staring at her, slowly stood up, still holding the beaker. Right, she said. My bad. Thought that was a different kind of explosion. She set the beaker down with exaggerated care. Sorry, reflex. What kind of reflex? A brave Zenthi student squeaked from under their desk. Involves combat rolling in chemistry class. The staying alive kind, Kira answered flatly, returning to her seat like nothing had happened. Professor Cormax cleared his throat, all 6 arms trembling slightly. Yes, well, let us continue with slightly less, stimulating demonstrations. Perhaps we could discuss molecular theory, very theoretical. No reactions, no sounds, just quiet learning. The rest of the class passed in terrified silence. Lunch was worse. The cafeteria was packed, which meant 200 students from across the galaxy, all eating, gossiping, and generally being young people who had not spent their formative years in active combat. Kira grabbed a tray, loaded it with something that approximated Earth food, and sat down at an empty table. She radiated a distinct leave-me-alone energy that most species recognized as universal. Most species. Not all. Is it true you killed someone? A tall Vorkshire student loomed over her table. They were naturally aggressive, all tusks and attitude. Kira took a bite of her food, chewed, swallowed, looked up slowly. "Yes," she said. The Vorksh student blinked. "I wait. Really?" "Yep," several someones. It was a war. That is generally how wars work. Half the cafeteria had gone quiet, listening, but Pip'r appeared from nowhere, sliding into the seat beside Kira with a tray piled absurdly high with desserts. "Okay, so Rumi, we need to talk about the Starlight Ball," Pip'r announced, completely ignoring the awkward confrontation. "It is only 6 weeks away, and you absolutely must come. It is the social event of the year. Everyone wears formal attire. There is dancing. They import actual Earth music. You will love it." "I don't dance," Kira said. "Everyone dances, even the Grelviks, and they don't have legs. I don't do crowds. It is a school dance, not a combat zone." Kira just looked at her, that look that said everything and nothing. Pip'r Day's enthusiasm dimmed for exactly half a second, then reignited. "Okay, fine. Different approach. What if I promise the punch is allegedly spiked with Zentari mood enhancers? Totally against regulations, very scandalous. I've had worse substances in my bloodstream," Kira muttered, returning to her food. Around them, students whispered. "The human war veteran. She admitted it. She actually fought. How many did she do you think she has? I heard Earth lost 40 million. Can you imagine?" Pip'r leaned closer, her voice dropping to something almost serious. "You know, ignoring them just makes it worse. The gossip, I mean. Everyone is going to talk. Might as well give them something boring to talk about, like how you went to a dance and had a moderately pleasant time." Kira sighed. The sigh of someone who had fought much larger battles and lost. "One dance," she said. "I will go to one dance. You get 30 minutes. Then I leave." Pip'r squealed, actually squealed, loud enough that 3 nearby students dropped their trays. Velkan, watching from his office via security cameras, took another pill. The bottle was looking dangerously empty. It was only day 1. Coach Thrungak was 7 feet of pure muscle, honor, and deeply held beliefs about the character-building properties of competitive sports. He was a Dravnik, which meant his entire species had evolved from apex predators who valued strength, strategy, and never ever backing down from a challenge. He had been teaching physical education at the academy for 15 years, and he prided himself on pushing students to their absolute limits. He was about to discover he had no idea what limits actually were. "Today," he announced, his voice booming across the gymnasium, "we played dodge plasma ball, a test of reflexes, tactical thinking, and teamwork." He held up the ball, which hummed with a soft blue glow. "Harmless, really. Set to the lowest stun setting. Worst case scenario, you got hit, felt a tingle, maybe got a small bruise. Blake, you are team captain for the Red Squad." Kira, wearing the academy's standard gray gym uniform that somehow still looked vaguely military on her, nodded once. Just once. The nod of someone receiving mission parameters. "Excellent. Show me what human warriors are made of." Coach Thrungak blew his whistle, which sounded like a dying space whale. "Begin." What happened next would later be described in the incident report as a systematic dismantling of the opposing team's defensive structure combined with reflexes that bordered on precognitive. The first throw came at Kira from a Zenthi student who had decent aim and terrible timing. Kira sidestepped without looking, caught the ball one-handed while simultaneously launching her own ball at a trajectory that defied 3 laws of physics. It bounced off the back wall, ricocheted off a support beam, and nailed a Theshan student in the center mass with enough force to send them sprawling. "Point, Red Team," Coach Thrungak shouted, delighted. Then Kira really started playing. She moved like she had been programmed by someone who fundamentally misunderstood the concept of a friendly school sport. Every throw was precise. Every dodge was minimal, conserving energy. She eliminated 6 players in 45 seconds. Her teammates just stood there, holding their balls, watching her work with expressions ranging from awe to existential terror. A brave Krikstar student tried to flank her. Kira spun, threw without aiming, and hit him square in the face. He went down hard. "Medical to gymnasium," the automated system announced cheerfully. "Keep playing," Coach Thrungak yelled. because stopping now felt like admitting defeat. Two more students tried coordinating an attack. Kira ducked under one throw, jumped over another, caught a third ball mid-air, and threw all three balls she was now somehow holding in a spread pattern that would have made a military instructor weep with pride. Three more players went down. One of them might have been on her own team. It was hard to tell through the chaos. Medical to gymnasium, the system repeated, less cheerfully now. Multiple casualties. Dispatch emergency hover stretchers. The game ended with Kira standing alone in a circle of groaning students holding two plasma balls, breathing normally, and looking genuinely confused about why everyone was staring at her like she had just committed a war crime. "I was going easy," she said into the horrified silence. Coach Throngak's jaw hung open, literally hung open. He had to manually close it with one massive hand. 3 students were loaded onto hover stretchers. Nothing broken, thankfully, but plenty of bruising, 1 concussion, and 2 cases of what the medical staff would later diagnose as acute psychological distress brought on by being absolutely demolished in a children's game. "You," Coach Throngak said slowly, pointing at Kira with a trembling finger, "you are benched, permanently. You will be writing essays about sportsmanship, many essays. So many essays." "But I won," Kira said. "You hospitalized 3 students. I was told to show you what human warriors are made of." She shrugged. "I showed you." 2 hours later, Velkan sat at the head of the faculty conference table, his eye stalks drooping so low they were practically resting on the surface. Around him, 17 teachers representing 12 species all talked at once, which created a noise that sounded like a malfunctioning universal translator having an anxiety attack. "Order." Velkan slammed his tentacle on the table. "Please, order. One at a time. Professor Cormix, you first." The Krickstar chemistry teacher waved all 6 arms frantically. "She weaponized my lab equipment. On her first day. Do you understand the psychological implications of a student who sees beakers as projectiles?" "She put 3 students in medical during gym class," Coach Thrungak added, his pride visibly wounded. 3, in a low-contact sport. She threw the ball so hard it left a dent in the wall. "The wall is reinforced titanium," someone whispered. "I know." Professor Linara, who taught art appreciation and had never experienced conflict in her entire peaceful life, raised a delicate hand. "Perhaps we are overreacting. She is simply, enthusiastic." "Enthusiastic?" Cormix's voice hit a pitch that shattered a water glass. "She hit the floor during a controlled chemical demonstration. She has combat reflexes in chemistry class." "Technically," said Professor Nixaray, the statistics teacher who loved being technically correct, "her reflexes are quite impressive. The reaction time alone suggests neural pathway optimization that we could study, perhaps publish a paper. Very fascinating, really." "Not helping." Velkan massaged his primary eye stalk. The headache was spreading. "The question before us is simple. Do we report Miss Blake to Galactic Student Services as a potential risk, or do we? He trailed off, because he did not actually know what the alternative was. "She's not aggressive," said Professor Windall, the literature teacher who had been quiet until now. The elderly Zephyrian looked around the table with eyes that had seen 70 years of students come and go. "She is not bullying anyone. She is not starting fights. She is not threatening anyone. She is simply, well, she is what happens when you take a child, send her to war, and then expect her to go back to worrying about homework and school dances." Silence. Heavy silence. "She is just," Windall continued softly, "efficiently terrifying." Velkan let his head rest on the table, motioned to increase my medication dosage. All in favor. Every hand, tentacle, and appendage in the room went up. Professor Zixnella loved history with the passion of someone who had never actually experienced any of the terrible things she taught. She was a luminary, a species that had achieved peace 5,000 years ago and had not fought a war since. To her, conflict was abstract, theoretical, something that happened to other species in other times. It made her an excellent teacher and absolutely terrible at reading a room. "Class, today we examined primitive tribal conflicts. You see projected a holographic star map. Specifically, we will analyze the recent Terran planetary conflict as a case study in adorable backward species behavior." She smiled brightly. Her species literally glowed when happy. She was glowing now. The humans, bless their little hearts, actually sent their young people to fight. Can you imagine, children, with weapons? It is like watching ancient gladiator games, but with more explosions and less entertainment value. In the third row, Kira stopped taking notes. Her pen, one of those old earth pens that used actual ink because she apparently enjoyed making things difficult, hovered over the paper, not moving, just hovering. Pip'r, sitting beside her, felt the temperature in their immediate area drop by several degrees. Now the Terran forces employed what they called tactics. Professor Zixnella continued, making air quotes that suggested tactics were a quaint human delusion. They used chemical weapons, which is frankly barbaric, orbital strikes, which shows a distinct lack of creativity, and ground troops, which is just, well, it's adorable that they thought that would work. She giggled. Actually giggled. The casualty rate was, let me check my notes. Oh my, 40 million. 40 million. Can you imagine being that inefficient at conflict resolution? My species would have simply talked it out over tea. They were invaded, Kira said quietly. Professor Zixnella's glow brightened. Yes, exactly. They were invaded by the Kryll hive, who were clearly the superior tactical force, and instead of surrendering like any reasonable species would, the humans decided to fight. For 3 whole years, it is tragically comic, really, like watching a small animal try to fight a— They were invaded, Kira repeated, louder now, by a hive mind species that considers other sentient beings to be food. There was no surrendering. There was no talking it out over tea. There was fight or die. We chose fight. We won. 40 million dead is 40 million people who gave everything so that the other 8 billion could keep existing. The classroom had gone silent. That special kind of silent that happens when everyone suddenly realizes they are witnessing something that will be talked about for years. Professor Zixnella's glow dimmed slightly. Well, yes, of course, but the methods employed were effective. Kira stood up. Not aggressively. Just stood. But something about the way she stood made it feel like the room had tilted. You want to talk tactics? Fine. Let me correct your absolutely terrible research. We did not use chemical weapons. We used targeted atmospheric dispersal agents designed to disrupt Kryll pheromone communication without harming civilian populations. Orbital strikes were precision targeted at hive nodes after we spent 6 months mapping their underground network, and ground troops. She laughed. No humor in it. Just sound. Ground troops were necessary because the Kryll adapted to orbital bombardment and went deep. Someone had to go down there and finish it. That someone was us. Kids. Children. Your adorable backward species. Professor Zixnella had stopped glowing entirely. I did not mean to. My unit held the line at New Seattle for 47 days while civilian transports evacuated 3 million people. We started with 200 soldiers. We ended with 36. The Kryll kept coming. We kept fighting. Because that is what you do when the alternative is extinction. Kira's voice was flat, clinical. The voice of someone reciting facts that happened to include nightmare fuel. My best friend Thomas Reed lost his arm on day 33 when a Kryll warrior tore it off, while he was pulling wounded civilians out of a collapsed shelter. He kept pulling them out, one-armed, until he passed out from blood loss. He was 17. Yeah, super adorable, really cute behavior. You should put that in your lecture notes. 24 students stared. Professor Zixnella looked like she might cry, or faint, or possibly both. Kira sat back down, picked up her pen. Continue, Professor. I am sure the rest of your analysis is equally well researched. Pip'r slowly, very slowly patted Kira's hand, the gesture of someone trying to comfort a live explosive. Class ended early. Professor Zixnella dismissed them with a trembling voice, and immediately went to file a report that she did not know how to properly classify. What was the form for I accidentally mocked a student's trauma in front of the entire class? School counselor Marilyn was an empath. Not metaphorically. Literally, her species the Serenthi could feel other people's emotions like physical sensations. It made her exceptionally good at her job and absolutely terrible at handling anyone with actual combat experience, though she did not know this yet. She knew it now. So Kira, Marilyn said in her softest, most soothing voice, the one that usually made distressed students calm down immediately. How are you feeling about being back at school? Kira sat in the overly comfortable chair that was designed to make students feel safe and unthreatened. She looked about as comfortable as someone sitting on a cactus. Fine. Just fine. Myralyn projected warm, understanding feelings. It must be quite an adjustment. Coming back after such a long absence. You feel like you fit in? Not really. And that must be difficult for you. Do you want to talk about why you were gone? Your file says emergency leave, but it doesn't specify. War, Kira said. I was at war. It is in the file. Page 3, paragraph 2. Myralyn consulted her datapad. Found page 3, read paragraph 2. Her empathic senses suddenly picked up on something they had missed before. Under Kira's carefully controlled exterior was not sadness, not fear, not any of the normal emotions trauma survivors carried. It was something else. Something that felt like static, like white noise, like nothing and everything at once. Oh, Myralyn said weakly. Oh, you mean an actual war, not a metaphorical struggle or family conflict, but actual war with guns and explosions and people dying. Yes. I see. And how do you feel about that experience? Kira looked at her. Really looked at her. How do I feel about it? Yes, your feelings are valid and I feel like I did my job. I kept people alive. Some of them anyway. Not all of them. Most of them died. But some lived. So net positive, I guess. Myralyn's empathic senses were screaming now. This was not how trauma worked. This was not how any of this worked. Kira, it is okay to feel sad about what you experienced. It is okay to grieve. You do not have to be strong all the fee. I killed 83 enemy combatants, Kira said, her voice conversational, like she was discussing the weather. Confirmed kills. It's probably more, but those are the ones I am sure about. Does that bother you? Myralyn felt the room spin. I mean in context of war, I suppose, but the emotional toll of taking a life must be. Number 83 was a Kryll queen. Big one. She was leading an assault on a civilian shelter. I shot her 17 times before she went down. Felt pretty good about that one actually. Saved about 2,000 people. You felt good. Myralyn's voice was faint. Yeah. Good. Because 2,000 people got to live. Their kids got to live. That is how math works. The counselor's training was failing her. All of it. Every technique, every approach, every soothing phrase. Gone. Kira, I think you might be experiencing some detachment from your emotions, which is a common trauma response, and we should work on reconnecting you with your feelings so you can process. Kira stood up. I am fine. Really. Just did some light interstellar genocide defense. No biggie. Totally normal teenage stuff. Right up there with prom and worrying about acne. The sarcasm was thick enough to cut with one of her many knives. Are we done here? I have homework. Apparently I am behind on ancient literature. Very important. Much more important than understanding how to clear a building full of hostile alien predators. We should schedule weekly sessions. Pass. Tira walked to the door, paused, turned back. Look, I know you are trying to help. I appreciate it, really, but I do not need someone to fix me. I am not broken, I am just different now. And everyone needs to stop treating me like I am going to snap and start stabbing people. I had 3 years of very good training. If I wanted to hurt someone, you would not see it coming. And it would be very efficient. The fact that I am here talking to you, taking chemistry class, and not dismantling this entire school's security system for fun, means I am doing great. Okay. Myralyn nodded weakly. Not because she agreed, because her body had decided nodding was safer than any other response. After Kira left, the counselor sat in silence for 10 full minutes. Then she called Velikan. We need to talk about the human student, she said. Get in line, Velikan replied, and the despair in his voice suggested the line was very, very long. The alarm started as a low whine that quickly escalated into a full shriek, the kind of sound that meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. Velikan was in his office, halfway through his third anxiety pill of the day, when his communication console lit up like a festival display. Code red. Code red. Hostile entity detected in Sector 7. All students evacuate to safe zones. Security teams respond immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Velkan's eye stalks shot straight up. Code red. In his 40 years of running this academy, they had never, not once, had an actual code red. Code yellow, sure, when that Vorksh student smuggled in fermented Xinthian berries and half the cafeteria got intoxicated. Code orange, absolutely, when the zero-gravity generator malfunctioned and the entire third floor went floating. But code red meant genuine danger. The kind with teeth. He pulled up the security feeds, his heart's pounding in 3 separate rhythms that did not harmonize well. Sector 7. Main courtyard. And there, oh no. There it was. A Kryll warrior. A real one. 8 feet of chitinous armor, bladed limbs and mandibles that could shear through steel. How it got here. Why it was here. Those were questions for later. Right now it was tearing through decorative plants and heading straight toward the student center. Security teams, bless them, were responding. 6 armed guards in full tactical gear carrying plasma rifles, looking professional and competent, and absolutely terrified. They formed a perimeter, established crossfire lanes and prepared to engage. The Kryll warrior looked at them. Then it moved. It was fast, faster than something that size had any right to be. It hit the security line like a meteor, scattering guards like toys. Plasma fire lit up the courtyard. Most of it missed. The shots that connected just made the creature angry. One guard went flying. His armor cracked. Another scrambled backward, firing wildly. Students were screaming, running, evacuating in the panicked chaos that came from realizing your safe school was suddenly very unsafe. Faculty members ushered them towards safe zones, their training kicking in even as their terror showed on every face and appendage. Volkan watched the feeds, cycling through camera angles, and his administrative brain was already composing the incident report, the parent notifications, the lawsuit preparations, when he noticed something odd. One student was not running away. One student was walking toward the Kryll warrior. One human student, specifically, moving with the calm purpose of someone who had done this before and found it mildly annoying. Oh no, Velkan whispered to his empty office. Oh no. The human is going to do something stupid. He zoomed in on Kira Blake's face. She looked irritated, not scared, not panicked, irritated, like someone had interrupted her lunch break. Or brilliant, probably both, definitely both. Why is it always both with humans? Kira walked past fleeing students, past scattered security guards trying to regroup, and stopped about 20 feet from the Kryll warrior. She was holding, and Velkan had to blink all 4 eye stalks to confirm this. Cafeteria lunch tray in one hand and a fire extinguisher in the other. The Kryll warrior noticed her, turned its massive head, let out a shriek that shattered windows. Kira sighed, visibly sighed. Velkan could read her lips on the security feed. You have got to be kidding me. What happened next took 90 seconds. Velkan timed it. Would later check the recording 3 times to make sure he had witnessed what he thought he witnessed. Kira threw the lunch tray like a discus. It hit the Kryll warrior in the eye cluster. The creature recoiled, more surprised than hurt. In that moment of distraction, Kira closed the distance, moving in a way that suggested extensive training in things schools did not teach. She aimed the fire extinguisher at the creature's sensory organs and unleashed a blast of chemical foam directly into its face. The Kryll warrior thrashed, blinded, its echolocation system disrupted by the foam. Kira dropped the extinguisher, grabbed a fallen security guard's plasma rifle, checked the charge in one smooth motion, and fired 6 precise shots into the creature's leg joints. The Kryll warrior collapsed, not dead but immobilized, neutralized, no longer a threat. The entire courtyard went silent. Security guards stared, faculty members stared. The few students who had stopped running to watch stared. Kira dropped the rifle, walked over to the nearest security camera, looked directly into it and spoke clearly. Really? This is what counts as dangerous here. She gestured at the downed Kryll warrior. I fought these things for 3 years. This one is barely an adolescent. Probably escaped from a research lab. Someone should check Sector 4. They run xenobiology experiments there. And your security team needs better training. Their perimeter collapsed in 4 seconds. 4, that is embarrassing. She walked off camera, presumably to return to whatever she had been doing before being interrupted by a genocidal alien predator. Velkan sat in his office, watching the recording loop. the lunch tray throw, the fire extinguisher, the absolute casual competence. He reached for his anxiety medication, realized the bottle was empty, and made a note to requisition a larger prescription, possibly 2 prescriptions, maybe 3. His console chirped. Emergency services requesting debrief. Galactic Student Services demanding explanation. Parents sending panicked messages. And somehow worst of all, a message from the Board of Education asking why security footage of a student single-handedly defeating a Kryll warrior was already trending on the galactic net with the caption, "Human casually handles Tuesday." It was only Wednesday. Velkan put his head down on his desk and seriously considered early retirement. The emergency faculty meeting was called for 2000 hours, which gave Velkan exactly 3 hours to do what he should have done weeks ago. Actually research what Kira Blake had done during the war. Not just read the file, really research it. He started with official Earth military records, which required 17 different security clearances, and a formal request that got approved in 14 minutes. Apparently, when your student defeats a Kryll warrior with cafeteria supplies, people become very cooperative, very quickly. The first document loaded, service record. Kira Blake, enlisted age 16, 3 months. Emergency conscription, all legal under Earth wartime protocols. Assigned to 3rd Marine Division, Echo Company, 2nd Platoon. Standard enough. Then Velkan saw the citations. Bronze Star for Valor, Silver Star for Exceptional Gallantry, Purple Heart with 2 clusters for wounds received in combat, the Earth Defense Medal, the Terran Campaign Ribbon with 4 stars indicating participation in 4 major operations, and sitting at the top like some kind of terrible crown, the Stellar Cross, Earth's highest military honor. The one they only gave when you did something so incredibly brave or crazy that an entire review board had to confirm you actually did it and were not making it up. Velkan's eye stalks began trembling. He opened the Stellar Cross citation. For extraordinary heroism in action against hostile alien forces. During the siege of New Seattle, Corporal Blake, with complete disregard for personal safety, held a defensive position against overwhelming Kryll forces for 47 consecutive days, enabling the successful evacuation of 3 million civilians. Despite sustaining multiple injuries and operating with minimal resupply, Corporal Blake's tactical leadership and unwavering determination prevented enemy breakthrough. Her actions directly saved 30,000 lives and maintained strategic defensive integrity during the most critical phase of the evacuation. Promoted to sergeant for actions above and beyond the call of duty. 30,000 lives. She was 17. Velkan kept reading, falling down a research hole that got darker and more impressive with every document. Combat action reports. Field promotions. Confirmed kills, 147. Wait, she had told the counselor 83. She had underestimated. The human had given herself a lower kill count. Who does that? Then he found the news archives. Alien news networks, the ones that had covered Earth's war from the outside. He opened the first video file. A Zentari news anchor, speaking in clinical tones. Reports continue to emerge about a human soldier designated only as the Ghost of Sector 7. Kryll forces have reportedly withdrawn from contested zones after encountering this individual. Intercepted Kryll communication suggests fear response. Highly unusual for hive mind species. Xena psychology experts baffled by phenomenon of single human soldier creating tactical disruption across entire sector. Another clip. Different network. Same story. The ghost continues to be spotted in high casualty zones. Survivors report a young human female moving alone through Kryll-held territory, eliminating high-value targets with extreme prejudice. Earth military refuses to confirm or deny existence of operative. A third clip. And Velkan's hands were shaking now. Intelligence sources confirm the ghost's identity. Sergeant Kira Blake, age 18 at time of final operation. Credited with 38 successful solo raids behind enemy lines. Kryll forces began abandoning forward positions in Sector 7 specifically to avoid engagement. Human military analysts describe this as unprecedented psychological warfare impact from single operative. Velkan closed the files, sat in silence, opened them again because he needed to confirm he had not hallucinated the entire thing. The human child in his school, the one he had assigned homework and worried about socially adjusting, had terrified a hive mind species so thoroughly they changed their tactical doctrine to avoid her. The faculty meeting started poorly and went downhill from there. 17 teachers crammed into the conference room, all talking at once, all having opinions about Kyra Blake and none of them knowing what Velkan now knew. "She is too aggressive," Professor Cormix insisted. "We cannot have a student who weaponizes laboratory equipment. She hospitalized my students," Coach Thrungak added. "In a friendly game." Friendly. "She mocked my lecture." Professor Zixnella's glow was nearly non-existent. In front of everyone. Velkan let them talk, let them vent, let them express every frustration and fear. Then he activated the holographic projector and displayed Kyra's military record. The room went quiet. Very quiet. "This," Velkan said slowly, "is what we have been treating as a problem student. This is who we have been sending to study skills workshops. Mandatory study skills workshops. For the human who held off an army for 47 days. Professor Windall, the literature teacher, started laughing. It was not happy laughter. It was the laughter of someone whose brain had just processed something so absurd it could only respond with hysteria. "We sent a decorated war hero to study skills workshop. We made her write essays about sportsmanship. We gave her detention for combat rolling in chemistry class. She has attended." Velkan checked his records. 6 sessions of remedial time management training. Time management. For someone who coordinated evacuation operations under active siege conditions. The faculty stared at the holographic display, at the citations, at the confirmed operations, at the final note that stated Kyra Blake had been medically discharged not for physical injuries, but for mandatory psychological rest after exceeding the maximum allowable consecutive combat days for human soldiers. "She is not a problem student," Miralyn said quietly. "She is a combat veteran, trying to go back to being a child, and we have been treating her like she is dangerous instead of hurting." "To be fair," Coach Thrungak muttered, "she is dangerous. Very dangerous." "She is dangerous," Professor Nixari corrected, "the way a trained medical professional is dangerous. Yes, they know how to hurt people. That does not mean they will, it means they know when not to." She pointed at the holographic display. "She took down that Kryll warrior today with non-lethal methods. She could have killed it. She has killed 147 of them, but she chose not to. Do you understand what that means? She chose restraint. In our school. For us." Silence again. Heavy with realization. "So what do we do?" Cormix asked, his mandibles clicking nervously. "We cannot just continue as normal." "No," Velkan agreed. "We cannot. We stop treating her like a threat waiting to happen. We stop being afraid of her. We start treating her like what she is. A student who needs support, not supervision. Someone who has been through more than any of us can imagine, and is trying very hard to be normal again." He paused. "And maybe we learn from her, because if today proved anything, it is that she knows more about crisis response than our entire security department combined." Professor Windall raised a hand. "I motion that we assign Kyra Blake as an assistant to campus security, paid position. Give her something useful to do with her skills, something that helps people. That is what soldiers want after war. Purpose, not pity." "Seconded," 3 voices said simultaneously. Velkan looked around the room, saw nodding heads and various alien appendages signaling agreement. "All in favor?" "Unanimous." "Good," Velkan said. "Meeting adjourned. And someone please tell her she does not have to attend study skills workshop anymore. That is just cruel at this point." The faculty filed out, quieter than they had entered, thinking thoughts about assumptions and fear and the difference between dangerous and damaged. Velkan stayed behind, looking at the holographic display of Kyra's service record, the ghost of Sector 7. In his school, taking chemistry, worrying about homework, trying so hard to be normal that it had to hurt. He made a note to personally apologize, not for being afraid, fear was reasonable, but for not looking past the fear to see the person underneath. It was the least he could do. The very least. Velkan found Kyra in the library 2 days after the Kryll incident, sitting alone at a corner table, surrounded by actual physical books because apparently humans still enjoyed the aesthetic of paper. She was reading something about advanced physics, taking notes in that careful handwriting that suggested someone who had learned to write clearly so that mission reports would not get people killed. He approached slowly, clearing his throat in a way that utilized all three of his vocal cords for maximum awkwardness. "Miss Blake, Kira, do you have a moment?" She looked up, her expression neutral. "Administrator, if this is about the Kryll warrior, I followed all proper protocols. Well, all the protocols that applied to the situation, some of them I made up on the spot. But they worked so—" No, not about that. Well, partially about that. Mostly not." Velikan sat down without being invited, which was either brave or stupid, possibly both. "I wanted to, that is, I feel it is appropriate to what I mean to say is—" He stopped, started over. "I owe you an apology." Kira closed her book, giving him her full attention, the kind of attention that felt like being scanned by targeting systems. "For what, specifically? There is a lot to choose from. For treating you like a threat," the words came out in a rush, "for being afraid of you, for assigning you to study skills workshop when you clearly do not need instruction on how to manage your time or organize your assignments or any of that." Kira stared at him for a long moment, then said, very calmly, "You thought I was going to snap and murder everyone, didn't you?" Velkan's eye stalks drooped in shame. "Yes." "Huh." She leaned back in her chair. "I mean fair. I probably would think that too." And this was the remarkable part, the part that Velkan would remember for the rest of his very long life. She laughed. Not a bitter laugh. Not a sarcastic laugh. A real laugh. The kind that came from someone who had found genuine humor in the absurdity of existence. "Oh man, you guys must have been terrified. No wonder everyone kept walking on eggshells. I thought it was because you were all just really polite or something." "We were perhaps overabundant in our caution," Velkan admitted, feeling his anxiety glands finally start to relax for the first time in weeks. "But in our defense, you did hospitalize 3 students in gym class." "Okay. Yeah. That was on me. I got competitive. Old habits." She grinned. And it was a nice grin. The kind that belonged on a 19-year-old student, and not on a decorated war hero. "So, apology accepted. Was that all?" "Actually no." Velikan pulled out his datapad. "I wanted to ask you something. What do you need? Not what we think you need. Not what the counselor thinks you need. What do you actually need to make this work? To finish school, to feel like you belong here. To be okay." Kira considered this, her fingers tapping on the table in a rhythm that might have been Morse code, or might have been random. "Honest answer. Please. I need challenges. Real ones. Not busy work, not homework designed for people who have never had to think about life or death decisions. I can do that stuff, obviously. But it makes me feel like I am wasting time, and wasting time makes me anxious." She paused. "I need purpose, something useful to do, something that helps people. That is what I am good at, helping people not die. It would be nice to use that skill set in a way that does not involve actual dying." "Reasonable," Velkan said, taking notes. "And I need normal friends. People who are not scared of me. People who invite me to stupid social events and make me pretend to care about things like school dances and gossip, because that stuff, the normal stuff, that is actually the hardest part. Relearning how to be a person who worries about normal things. Pip'r helps with that. She is aggressively normal at me. It is kind of great." Velkan nodded, all 4 eye stalks focused on his notes. "So, challenges, purpose, and enforced normalcy through enthusiastic roommate intervention. Yeah, that about covers it." "I think we can arrange that," Velkan said. "I think we can absolutely arrange that." The new independent study course appeared on Kira's schedule 3 days later. Advanced Tactical Studies. 1 credit. Instructor listed as staff. Which was technically true, since Velikan himself was overseeing it, along with the head of campus security, who had personally requested Kira's assistance after watching her take down the Kryll warrior with a lunch tray. The first session was held in the security office, which smelled like coffee and nervous sweat. 6 security officers sat in chairs that were definitely too small for their comfort, looking at Kira with expressions ranging from awe to terror to a confusing mix of both. "Right," Kira said, standing at the front of the room with a confidence that came from briefing actual soldiers in actual combat zones. "So let me start by saying, Your perimeter collapsed in 4 seconds during the Kryll incident. 4. That is not great. Let me show you why. She spent 2 hours breaking down their response, pointing out flaws, suggesting improvements, and occasionally demonstrating proper tactical positioning using chairs and a very worried potted plant as props. By the end, the security team was taking notes frantically and asking questions about threat assessment and crossfire lanes, and a dozen other things that schools should not need to know but apparently did now. The head of security shook Kira's hand afterward with genuine respect. You available for regular training sessions. Paid position, 10 credits an hour. Deal, Kira said. But I want it on my resume, might need job references after graduation. You are hired. Pip'r's campaign to socialize Kira became a weekly ritual that both participants approached with varying levels of enthusiasm. Every week, one social event, mandatory, non-negotiable, the Starlight Ball Planning Committee, the Interspecies Cooking Club, which ended badly when Kira accidentally made food so spicy that 3 students required medical attention, the campus movie night, where Kira provided sarcastic commentary on the tactical failures of the characters, and got shushed 17 times. But slowly, week by week it worked. Other students stopped seeing her as the scary human war veteran, and started seeing her as Kira, that one student who was weirdly good at emergency situations and made funny deadpan comments, and sometimes smiled when she thought no one was looking. She also started tutoring. Not officially at first. Just helping classmates who asked, explaining physics problems with analogies that involved projectile motion and ballistics, teaching chemistry through the lens of useful chemical reactions, helping literature students analyze character motivation by asking, okay, but what is their mission objective here? What are they actually trying to accomplish? Professor Windall watched one of these tutoring sessions and later told Velkan, she is an excellent teacher, terrifying, but excellent. The students trust her. They know if she tells them something, it is true, and it matters. That is rare. Campus, slowly, found a new balance. One that included Kira Blake not as a problem to be managed, but as a person who belonged. 3 months later, Velkan sat in his office doing his quarterly status report, the bureaucratic ritual that kept the Galactic Education Board satisfied and mostly out of his business. He pulled up security feeds out of habit, scanning the various locations, checking that everything was running smoothly. The Starlight Ball was in full swing. The gymnasium had been transformed into something that approximated a fancy venue, complete with lights that shifted colors, music that somehow accommodated 14 different species hearing ranges, and refreshments that would not poison anyone. Probably, students danced or whatever their species did that approximated dancing. A Grelvik student was indeed moving rhythmically, despite lacking legs. Biology was beautiful. And there in the middle of the dance floor was Kira Blake. She wore a simple dress, dark blue, nothing fancy. Tutdelight had probably picked it out. The Theshan girl was right next to her, dancing with the kind of enthusiasm that should have required safety equipment. Kira was moving to the music, not gracefully exactly, but genuinely. She was smiling. Actually smiling. Laughing at something Pip'r said. Looking relaxed in a way Velkan had not seen since she returned. She looked like a student. A normal student. A 19-year-old kid at a school dance, having a good time fitting in. Velkan felt something warm in his chest region. Pride, maybe, relief. The satisfaction of seeing someone find their place after being lost. Then the alarm sounded. Not code red, just code yellow. Minor incident. A malfunctioning cleaning drone had gone rogue in the cafeteria, spraying sanitizing foam everywhere and causing general chaos. Standard stuff. Security was already responding. On the security feed, Falcon watched the interesting thing happen. Students panicked, running in various directions. Faculty members looked confused. The security team mobilized, moving with much better coordination than they had 3 months ago. Someone had trained them well. And Kira just sighed. He could see it on camera. The long-suffering sigh of someone who had dealt with much worse than malfunctioning cleaning drones. She put down her drink, said something to Pip'r that made the Theshan girl laugh and wave her away, and walked toward the cafeteria with the casual purpose of someone handling a minor inconvenience. 30 seconds later, The alarm stopped. The security feed showed the cleaning drone powered down, Kira standing next to it holding what looked like its central processor, and 3 security officers giving her thumbs up. The human gesture had spread across campus. Everyone did it now. Kira walked back to the dance, picked up her drink, resumed dancing like nothing had happened. Velkan turned to his status report and began typing. Human student Kira Blake has successfully reintegrated into academic life. Campus is safer. Students are inspired. Multiple faculty members have requested her assistance with various projects. She has improved our security protocols, prevented 2 additional incidents, and somehow convinced the cafeteria to start serving actual Earth coffee, which I am told is quite good, though I cannot personally verify, as my species finds caffeine mildly toxic. He paused, considered, then added, I have aged 10 cycles in 3 months. She graduates in 1 year. I might actually survive this. Perhaps. Maybe. I am cautiously optimistic. Very cautiously. She is still human, after all. He filed the report, took one last anxiety pill because old habits die hard, and watched the security feed as Kira Blake danced at her school dance, surrounded by friends, finally home after 3 years of war. It was not a happy ending, Velkan thought. Those were rare in real life, but it was a good middle, a solid continuation, a story still being written, and sometimes that was enough.